Thank you for joining us, Vice Chief Beaudin. How are you feeling about not being able to register for the Indigenous Identity Fraud Summit?
I was very disappointed, I must say. I did put 3 inquiries in. Initially, when the news release was put out, I contacted them immediately because I wanted to attend. And I tried, firstly, it was the Métis, Manitoba Métis, and then I tried the Ontario Chiefs, and I went back again. It was a different contact, mind you, but came down that I didn't hear from anybody. And then the Friday, they got a hold of me and they just said, "Oh, you can watch it on streaming." That's all they said, is I could watch it.
Both the Métis Nation of Ontario and Métis Nation of Alberta weren't invited as well. What is your reaction to this?
Well, if they're truly, truly serious about identity fraud, we should have been all invited. We should have had all of us an opportunity to address this important issue. The Congress of Aboriginal People, we believe the same thing. It is important, and we want our voices heard. And even today, what happened was that, some of the connections I made that were when they were making presentations today, these are my people they were talking about on both sides of my family. And that's why I was so disappointed. The Manitoba Métis, well, they talked about the history. They talked about their history in terms of their connections to the people in the United States, just on the border there in North Dakota. Well, I mean, they were talking about my grandparents, my grandmother on my dad's side. And then on the other side, they talked about Felix Calahoo, who was they called him part of the Big Five, who built the Métis settlements. Well, that was my great-great-grandfather's son. So, I mean, my great-grandfather signed the treaty, and we're a band that was wiped completely out by the federal government in 1958. So, I was pretty disappointed. But on a larger context, this is a huge discussion that we should all be having, and doing what they're doing. I also believe it divides us more. And I heard some of the comments made by Chartrand, for example, David Chartrand, when he talked about, well, kind of anticipating a response by either CAP or whoever, or NWAC. I don't know what he was thinking, but yeah, but let's have a real discussion. That's what I'd like to have.
How did you feel being shut out and then just watching on the sidelines from home on the YouTube channel and seeing what was discussed? How did it make you feel?
I felt very uncomfortable. To me, there was part of disinformation campaign that was going on, and I put this at the feet of the federal government as well, because they turned around and they created this distinction-based policy approach. David Chartrand and the Manitoba Métis, they took steps in dividing all of us. So, for them to come around and say that they're the heroes, well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, they're attacking a lot of our constituents. They're attacking some of our communities throughout Canada. And, the other thing that really jumped out to me, in 1985, and we're going to go back a few years, when Bill C-31 was introduced, a lot of the Indian Act chiefs and bands said they did not want anything to do with that bill. They did not even want to include First Nations people who were under the treaties to welcome them home. And I know that it was mostly impacting women. So for them to say that, I mean, I couldn't believe the things that people were talking about. So where were they? They should have been fighting. That Indian Act destroyed and divided a lot of people, and they should have known that. They know that. And one thing they also said too. Let's go back a little bit. They talked about, erasing the people. Well, if you look at Alberta, the very band that I'm referring to is the Michelle Calahoo band. We're not in no history books. Nobody talked about us in terms of what happened to our people. You talk, it was a pretty big reserve by, Canadian standards. It was 40 square miles gone,
Yeah.
scooped up by industry, scooped up by division by the federal government. And they did that, and they wanted to do that I'm going to add, to every reserve in Canada. They got away with one, but they certainly wanted to do that. So, and I don't want to take away. There is fraud. I want to say that too. We know that. We acknowledge that. But why can't we have a really solid discussion about it and address it as a people, as nations going forward? I mean, Daniels brought that out, right? We won Daniels. CAP put that forward, and I might add that AFN, MNC even was there battling it out, saying that they wanted to, they want nothing to do with it, and they acted as interveners. I mean, they forget all about it. And another thing I want to add, sorry, I know I'm going on, but I get really frustrated. So, anyways, okay, I know you want to maybe ask another question.
Well, Vice Chief Beaudin, thank you for your time. We'll have to leave it there. This is definitely a topic that we can continue to cover day in and day out, but we'll leave it there. Thank you for your time, Vice Chief.
I'd absolutely like to continue this discussion. Thank you for having me.